half in the bag. I would buy that for $1.
Hey assholes, welcome to another episode of Half in the Bag. I'm Jay.
And I'm Mike.
And this week we saw two recent releases that are now in theaters, Drive and Contagion.
When you get your money,
weaponize the bird flu. Is that what we're looking at?
his debt's
Someone
paid.
doesn't have to weaponize the bird
You
flu.
never go near his family again.
Birds are doing that.
Drive is a new crime thriller by a Danish filmmaker named this. The movie stars Ryan Gosling and an actress, and it also stars Albert Brooks and Ron Perlman, who is without a comedy beard in this film.
If I drive for you, you give me a time and a place. I give you a 5-minute window. Anything happens in that 5 minutes and I'm yours, no matter what. I don't sit in while you're running it down. I don't carry a gun. I drive.
And Contagion is Steven Soderbergh's 23rd feature this year, and it's the story of multiple characters across the planet dealing with a worldwide disease that's killing millions and millions of people. Thankfully, the first one of those being Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yes.
On day one, there were 2 people, and then 4, and then 16. In 3 months, it's 1 billion. That's where we're headed.
So we're going to try something a little different this week in that we're going to talk about both of these movies kind of at the same time or bouncing back and forth between the two because they're very similar in a certain aspect, which is that if you were to describe the movies to somebody as far as the plot goes, they both sound like really generic, conventional Hollywood movies, but they're both executed in a very different style than that. Drive specifically, Drive especially. What did you think of Drive?
Oh, I loved Drive. Probably one of the better movies I've seen this year. But you're right about the subject matter. The story is very simple. And Ryan Gosling on the cover, he's like, you know, and all I think of is like Paul Walker in The Fast and the Furious, and people thinking it's that kind of movie. I was expecting, like, having seen that, something like that, like, he's got to drive at the end to save the day, and he's got to use all of his skills as a driver, but he doesn't. He drives in the beginning and then never again in the film. One other time.
Just 4 minutes here on the clock in this major break game for the Clippers.
With the music, like the synth score, it sort of evokes the feeling of like an 80s movie. But as far as like pacing and tone goes, it's like a 70s movie. Like I love like, you know, movies like Taxi Driver or movies that really take their time.
I'm glad we're talking about both movies at once because Contagion's very similar in the way like people hear about this movie and say there's this virus movie.
Yeah.
The virus takes over the world, so naturally you expect all these things to happen.
Well, Contagion is another one that may horribly bore people that go in expecting an action thriller disease movie, end of the world movie.
Well, when we saw Drive, there was one other person in the theater.
Yes.
And when we saw Contagion, there was maybe 7 other people in the theater. And then once the movie ended, what did the person in the row, a couple rows ahead of us?
The guy right up front just stood up and yelled. I'm assuming he was trying to make a point to everyone in the theater. He just goes, "Weak ass movie!" And he had his kid there too.
Oh.
Weak ass movie? Me and my kid wanted to see Matt Damon running from things.
Get back in your car.
We're not sick!
But yeah, Drive is, it's a very different kind of movie if you're into mainstream action, Fast and the Furious kind of movies. It's not that at all.
Yeah.
It's very, very low key. It's very slow moving, and it makes great use of visuals and sound. And if you explain it to someone, they probably roll their eyes. The tagline might, you know, read something like a Hollywood stunt car driver gets caught up in an underworld of crime and has to drive and blah, 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 blah. If you put the movie in the hands of another director, the choices that they would make in terms of shots, composition, pacing, sound design, all those elements would be totally different.
I was thinking about that throughout the movie, like all the action scenes in this are quick and brutal and over with. There's a chase scene at one point that would be 15 minutes long in a more sort of conventional Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
Here, there's a long stretch before that happens where the movie's very quiet, very slow paced, and then that happens, and because of that build up, because of the slower pace, it has more of an impact.
There is one scene in the movie That's a really good example of if the movie was handled by a different director. Basically, the scene is Ryan Gosling goes into a strip club to find this mob guy. You know, he breaks his hand with a hammer. He puts a bullet right on his head and is threatening to hit the back of the bullet and kill him.
Do you remember this?
No.
It's very simple. Ryan Gosling doesn't say a lot, but the most interesting part was like all the strippers are in there and they're all like completely naked and they're just like, it's like they know the business they're in, they know the guy and who he works for and what he's involved in, and they might have seen stuff like this before. And I think that was kind of the overall theme of the movie was violence. But in another movie, all those girls would have gotten up and started screaming and running out of the room, and the camera would have been like this. And like, tell me what I want to know.
There would have been some badass music on the soundtrack. And
well, they would have showed him. Well, one thing was they didn't show the strip club at all. He comes in this back hallway. They would have had like 5 or 6 different shots with this like techno music playing and the girl on the pole and
people watching him throwing money at him.
And he'd be walking in like a badass, but the shot's like this flat shot and he just comes into the frame and there's a girl texting.
And you know right away where he's at.
Right.
Like you don't need to see all that shit.
You're like, okay, he's at a strip club.
It's not trying to glamorize anything as far as that or as far as the violence. I mean, the violence is brutal and it takes its toll on people. Like not just physically, of course, but even like psychologically, emotionally.
That's the direction.
Yeah.
That's the choices the director made, and not necessarily the screenwriter, perhaps, possibly. But if it was another movie, you have this basic story, the way it's shot, the way they choose to introduce the scene and all that. Doing it differently completely changed your audience response, and I found that to be interesting.
The whole movie has sort of like the feel of like a dream. It's sort of ethereal and
Parts of my like comedic part of my brain comes in, like when he's like, meet me at the Great Wall restaurant. Do you know where it is? Yeah. Then they cut and they have this slow shot, and I was like, yeah, I'll Google it. I think of like where it's like reality starts to seep in.
Yeah.
And when those moments start happening, that's when I realized the movie's sort of outside of reality.
Yeah.
Like they're having this very, very dark, confrontational scene, but it's in a Chinese restaurant. So I picture, you want more Pepsi? Like someone coming up to, no, thanks, this is a bad time. But the movie that stuff fades away after a while.
Yeah.
You get into it. Yeah, a great movie.
yes, absolutely. Probably my favorite movie I've seen all year. Even though I have a feeling a lot of people will hate it because it's boring.
Kid, I want you to meet Mr. Bernie Rose.
My hands are a little dirty.
So am I.
But let's talk about our other film called Contagion.
Yeah, this is a movie, and I liked this movie. I didn't love it, but I liked it. But it has a very sort of like cold, distanced feel to the material. It's very sort of like clinical in the way it shows these events happening.
Yeah.
Which is a different take on, this type of movie.
I like Steven Soderbergh. In fact, I just recently watched The Girlfriend Experience.
One of his weirdo little movies.
Oh, it was a weirdo little movie, and it has a real-life porno actress, Sasha Grey, in it.
Yes, yes.
Who is an acceptable actress in the role. The performances in the Steven Soderbergh movies are always very natural.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people it just sounds like a regular conversation, people stepping on each other's lines. But that movie was very, very interestingly shot, very different.
He likes to experiment.
Yeah. It's really like a sad movie. It's very slow moving, lots of really long takes, but really good performances. And while I'm watching Contagion, and I'm like, what is the point? Disease and disease control and all that stuff, movies about that or the subject matter doesn't really bother me, doesn't really interest me. See, I feel bad saying all this because this is the kind of movie I love.
Sure.
I think it's just the
subject matter.
If it was a movie about aliens invading Earth in a very methodical, cold way, I probably would have really liked it.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't have Will Smith going, let's go kick E.T.'s ass. If it's just very, very realistic. But you have a fear of infestation and bugs. And
I have
viruses.
a horrible, horrible fear and disgust of the human body and of disease and of getting sick. I'm kind of a necrophiliac like that.
Oh, okay.
So when I
understand.
actually kind of dreaded watching this movie. I was very nervous because I thought I'd have like a nervous breakdown in the theater, and I didn't because there is that detachment. It's not a very emotional movie, and that's sort of the point of it, which is an interesting angle to take, but that's also what kept me from getting sort of invested in anything that was happening.
But that's why we're talking about both these movies, was because Contagion. Have you seen Contagion? Oh, what is it? It's a big virus movie. Virus spreads all over the world, and then you immediately just think Hollywood, like helicopters, army men, explosions,
Yeah.
Matt Damon running, someone, a group of survivors trying to make it out of the city before the virus gets them, and people going, ah! Entire city's being wiped out by, we've got to nuke Los Angeles to contain the virus, and like shit like that. And then you watch it, and it's Lawrence Fishburne at a podium. But yeah, you feel bad saying, I feel bad saying that because of the director and the way it was made. It was made very, very well.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was very,
Yeah.
very well acted. I just didn't see the point, or the point didn't interest me.
Okay.
If it was a very methodical, very specific movie about how strip clubs work, I would have enjoyed it. Kitty has to go spin on the pole now. Let's watch that. Sandy has to go in the VIP booth.
Oh, you know Sandy.
I do.
Okay.
But Lawrence Fishburne at a podium, not so hot.
Well, speak for yourself.
They're calling out the National Guard. They're moving the president underground. People will panic.
Get away!
It will tip over.
The truth is being kept from the world.
Cook your samples, destroy everything.
I appreciate dumb action movies. I do, sometimes. I appreciate very, very slow-moving movies where you're just like bogged down in the minutia of what's happening, and you're just like, wow, and all things in between. But the average theater goer who wants to shove popcorn in their face and watch an action movie with Matt Damon in it will not like this, and you can't recommend it. Same with Drive.
Right.
They're both very slow-moving movies, and they're both very opposite of what you would think.
Yeah, especially Drive, where like I would want to recommend it, or I'd be like, this movie is really great. It's really good. It's really interesting. You will hate it. You have to say that to a lot of people.
I don't think Drive is that like slow-moving. It takes a long while for it to heat up.
Yeah.
In movie terms.
Well, there's a difference between slow moving and boring. It's never boring. Like
No.
you're constantly engaged throughout the whole movie, but a lot of sort of a general audience expecting a, car chase action movie will be horribly bored.
Well, it's wonderful that it's out in theaters now and it exists. So little gems like that continually crop up and make me feel good about the state of movies.
We should really get around to trying to figure out where Plinkett's VCR is soon.
You're right, this is a problem.
But first, we should probably get rid of that VCR.
Oh yeah, why is that there? What's that from?
Remember when I scared away George Lucas?
Well, just throw it in Plinkett's garbage.
No, he'll find it there, and then he'll wonder why there's a VCR in his garbage, and then he'll notice that his VCR is missing. We've got to get it away from this place.
Hey, have you ever seen The Lion King?
I have not seen The Lion King, so I was trying to figure out why all my socks keep cracking in half, and I realized it's because I keep jerking off into them.
So I joined a gang the other day.
What gang?
The Crips.
Oh, I'm a blood.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Oh. It's Mr. Plinkett.
Hey,
How's it going?
Hi, Mr. Plinkett.
what are you two doing here?
Gee.
Hey! Aw, what a cute little doggy. Yes, you are. You cute little puppy dog. Aw. Good,
Is
good
he blind
little
or
boy.
stupid?
Yes.
Get your treat from somewhere or other. Oh. Looks like your dog crapped on the sidewalk.
Well, that was unexpected.
Hey, cute dog.